What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, backlash exploded online after an interview between Larian Studios and Bloomberg with AI in gaming and where they see it fitting in. Turns out social media wasn't thrilled with their response, so much so that the CEO at Larian Studios had to respond to everything, and we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Metroid Prime 4 with a recent data mining that shows there is a lot more talking that could have been in the game, and we also have a major shakeup that's hit Sony with Sucker Punch, with, a core pillar of the studio now leaving after nearly 3 decades. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, talking about the world of gaming, trying to keep you up to date. So if you don't see a notification, just know there's probably a video here for you to check out in the morning. And we're going to start today with a Mega Man collection that's due out for 2026. Now we have the exact release date. This we can see over on Gamatsu, where they say Mega Man Star Force Legacy Collection will launch for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC via Steam on March 27th, 2026. Again, this was previously announced, and Capcom's been going through trying to get all the Mega Man collections, it seems, other than Legends. Maybe in the future, we'll see. But this one in particular has, you can see, Star Force Leo, Dragon, Pegasus, Star Force 2, Zerker, Cross Ninja, Zerker, Cross Saurian, and then Star Force 3, Black Ace, and Star Force 3, Red Joker. So there is quite a bit of content here. We'll also have online features as well that you can tap into. So, it's a good looking collection coming out in the first quarter of 2026. So keep an eye out. I'm thinking maybe in 2027, as again, they just keep rapid firing these collections. Maybe that 40th anniversary for Mega Man was set up nicely next to Dual Override, and then maybe a Mega Man Legends collection. Cross my fingers for that one. Also, I have good news for Dead Island fans, especially after Dead Island 2 that came out in 2023, as it appears a follow-up is in development. This we can see. This is over on X from Bogorad, who says Dam Buster Studios' financial statements are out. That's as of March 2025. Dead Island 3 is in development. The current predicted release window for the project is Q1 or Q2 2028. Again, that does make sense. Dead Island 2 came out in April of 2023. That's a 5-year cycle. That's about what you expect nowadays with development time. That might be shorter or quicker than what people are getting used to now. But Dead Island 2 was actually pretty cool with the gore system, where the different zombies would break into pieces and the way that their bodies would end up distorting and coming apart. It was impressive tech. So I am curious if that's something they continue forward here going into 2028 for Dead Island 3. It's also nice to have this confirmation, since nothing seems very certain at all with Embracer. So at least it seems that Dead Island 2 did well enough for them to warrant a third one. So we'll look forward, I guess, for when they're ready to talk about this here in the coming years. Oh, and it turns out Terminator Survivors is not launching into early access in 2025, mostly because, there's just a couple of weeks left. So seems pretty obvious that they hadn't come up with the release date yet. It wasn't going to happen, but now they've made that official. This we can see over on Pure Xbox. This is a game that was once planned early access in 2024, but has now missed the 2025 boat as well. Team is ditching early access entirely, has delayed the game indefinitely while it reworks a number of different aspects of its upcoming Terminator title. Co-op has also been dropped to allow the team to give fans an authentic Terminator experience. And they have the full update from the studio here. I'll link to this down below in the source if you want to read all the way through it. Basically, bottom line, Terminator Survivors not going to be making early access here in 2025. We'll have to look forward to 2026 for when they're ready to really launch this game. I guess just fully outright day one. I'm curious, they dropped co-op. That's interesting. That was a big feature they were at least pointing to there early on, so maybe they ran some issues around that, but we'll see with Terminator, I guess, coming out in 2026. Who knows at this point? And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the craziness that ensued yesterday after Larian Studios CEO Sven Vink did talk about Divinity, the new game that just got announced in that wild, over-the-top cinematic trailer at the Game Awards. He did confirm some stuff that people were very, very excited for. As an example here, we can see this over on Bloomberg from Jason Schreier's interview and article, where he says this is going to be Us Unleashed, I think. That's Vink talking about the new Divinity game. It's a turn-based RPG featuring everything you've seen from us in the past, but it's brought to the next level. So clearly people were excited here. Okay, it is a turn-based RPG, and it seems like they are going all out on this one, and they say, take it to the next level. That's awesome. Divinity fans I see out there are very excited. People were even telling me in the comments the other day, like, hey, you should check out that new update that just released for the PS5 and the Xbox and the Switch too, because it's an incredible game. All right, so with that done, great. We're going through the article a bit more. Then we get to a section that absolutely set the internet off. All right, this from Bloomberg and Jay Schreier once again, saying, under Vink, Larian has been pushing hard on generative AI, although the CEO says the technology hasn't led to big gains in efficiency. He says there won't be any AI-generated content in Divinity. Everything is human actors. We're writing everything ourselves, but the creators often use AI tools to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentations, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. The use of generative AI has led to some pushback at Larian, but I think at this point, everyone at the company is more or less okay with the way we're using it, Vink said. And as you can probably assume at this point, a lot of the pushback had to do with just generative AI being mentioned, but also saying that they are using it in some capacity internally at Larian. And then you bring up the artist and the concept art and some of the other aspects to workflow. It's like, whoa, hold on. How much generative AI are they actually using there? And that, again, exploded online. People were really frustrated to see this. And it got to the point where people went back and even looked at things like Clair Obscur Expedition 33, as there have been some mentions of the studio there, Sandfall, using generative AI as well, like Gene Park as an example here we can see, where he pulled this from, this was an article, an interview in July. It was over the summer, where the Expedition 33 team freely admitted using AI, and it just won the most awards ever in the Game Awards history. This was a quote from the producer for Clair Obscur saying, "We use some AI, but not much. The key is that we were very clear about what we wanted to do and what to invest in, and of course, technology has allowed us to do things that were unthinkable a short time ago. Unreal Engine 5's tools and assets have been very important in improving the graphics, gameplay, and cinematics." Now, in a very recent article, in an interview, this was December 4th over on Game Pressure, the producer then once again from Clair Obscur said a firm no to creative AI. Again, very important to note, creative AI, as in I would figure then, using AI, say, in more day-to-day activities, like they mentioned PowerPoint presentations. Like, okay, can you put all this stuff in a PowerPoint presentation to make this a bit easier? Because I have other things I need to be doing, that talking with AI. And for the most part, when it comes to office work, like, again, day-to-day, more menial tasks, AI is very good at that. I know with Microsoft, they're pushing it apparently internally quite hard when it comes to emails and office work, Excel sheets, stuff that could be done very quickly if it's not necessarily a human having to do it, and it's just a lot of numbers and sorting. I can understand that, right? The generative AI thing that's coming up that's frustrating people is more on the art side, as that's a whole can of worms on its own when it comes to artists, even programmers who seem to be getting kind of fed up with the idea of AI coding a lot of stuff as well. And then that comes back to, how does AI figure a lot of this stuff out? Well, they train on other people's artwork and even just like programming in general that's been done in the past. But after seeing all of this, Vink did go ahead and respond over on his social media account, where he says that, well, he says we're not pushing hard for or replacing concept artists with AI. We have a team of 72 artists, of which 23 are concept artists, and we are hiring more. The art they create is original, and I'm very proud of what they do. I was asked explicitly about concept art and our use of Gen AI. I answered that we use it to explore things. I didn't say we use it to develop concept art. The artists do that, and they are indeed world-class artists. We use AI tools to explore references, just like we use Google and art books. At the very early ideation stages, we use it as a rough outline for composition, which we replace with original concept art. There is no comparison. He also links here to an article. They talked about how we use ML or machine learning here if you'd like to know more. We've hired creatives for their talent, not for their ability to do what a machine suggests, but they can experiment with these tools to make their lives easier. And again, here's the thing, all right? So it seems like on social media, when AI comes up, a lot of the nuance goes out the window. AI is genuinely useful, again, for tasks that aren't necessarily just do everything. It's like, hey, can you pull up information around it? It's almost, to me, like a more useful search engine provided you can check their sourcing, which you can ask AI, hey, pull up all this information and then also source it so I can read further. It is a way to save time for it to go out into the vast internet and get the information and sort it for you. Those things do help, as he mentions, the ideation process, or even just full-on deep research. It makes a lot of sense when it comes to being able to gather a lot of that stuff. But as I mentioned right now, it's just, there's a lot of frustration around AI as people are hearing about how it's going to help their day-to-day lives, but it really hasn't done that. In fact, we've been seeing for a lot of people frustration, especially in gaming now, where this is really coming up, where things are getting more expensive around RAM being a big one, right? Because it's a lot of those parts are going to data centers and SSDs, and we're seeing how a lot of job loss and stuff happening where people are being replaced at entry-level jobs by AI. But we keep hearing about it more and more in gaming, and while we're seeing that, prices keep going up. So there's already a lot of frustration that's boiling over whenever AI comes up. So I think what's more likely going to happen, a lot of these studios, think about big publishers right now that are all in the free market, competing for your dollars. They're all experimenting with generative AI in some way. Doesn't mean they're using it in their games, but off to the side in R&D, they're checking it out. Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo's even talked about it. Yeah, we're keeping an eye on it. That's code for, yeah, we're trying it out internally. Doesn't mean that it's happening in any of our games right now, but we're at least seeing what it can do. So just, that would be my expectation. Assume they're all using it, and we'll see if it actually ends up saving them time, saving them money, or genuinely has some kind of breakthrough to where they can use it in a game online for unique NPC behavior across the board. Then it might get integrated. But if it really doesn't bear any fruit for them, they might just move on. Here, though, it was a lesson, I guess, for Larian in this case, the CEO. It's like, people really don't like AI. Maybe we won't talk about it as much in interviews going forward. Next up, let's talk about Metroid Prime 4, as there is an entire data mining that's happened here, and what it's uncovered is more than 30 minutes of cut dialogue for all those companion characters that were in the game that people were already kind of annoyed about, but it was a lot that was just, wow, they do talk a lot and break up a lot of the isolation and that feeling of loneliness in Metroid Prime games. Well, take a look. This is a video, and I'll have a link down below in the sources. And this is from Bearborg, and it has all the base camp interactions. So when you're at camp, you can talk to these different companions, and they have a ton of it. And a lot of it was just kind of offhanded comments, sort of silly things, and you know, if you're seeking these dialogue lines out, like a lot of the stuff that's being said, and it's just you pass by them and they say that, it's like, yeah, it's fine. The thing that to me was an issue was, man, sometimes they do talk a lot while you're out and about and exploring, and then when you dump them off somewhere, it's nice and quiet, and again, it has that atmosphere for Metroid Prime. It's funny though that going through all of this, nothing for Samus at all. It's like, wow, that's the one dialogue aspect to it that is absent that people would have preferred even at times for having Samus say something, because there are some awkward moments where a person says something to Samus and she just stares at them blankly, like they're dumb. What are you saying? It's like that. But so the idea of Samus saying something back because there was so much dialogue would have made more sense. But to me, I like the idea of, for Metroid Prime, it trying to be told with the least amount of dialogue possible, if that is a thing, because I think a lot of what makes Metroid Prime is kind of the ambience that's set by just being alone in this weird abandoned world that you're trying to work your way through with different puzzles and just discoveries outright. So that's how I'd like to see maybe Metroid Prime 5 be, but the fact that they cut so much dialogue, and cut content isn't new for a game, that happens to all of them, but more than half an hour of cut dialogue lines for all your companions does make me think that maybe in Metroid Prime 5, there's actually more dialogue than what we had here with Metroid Prime 4. Next up, let's talk about a shakeup at Sony with Sucker Punch as, a pillar for the studio is now leaving. They've been there since the beginning. We can see this. This is over on Sony's website with the official press release, saying after nearly 3 decades helping bring to life iconic franchises like Sly Cooper, Infamous, Ghost of Tsushima, and Ghost of Yotei, Brian Fleming has announced he's passing Sucker Punch studio leadership onto a new generation. Over the past year, Brian has worked closely with PlayStation Studios to ensure that Sucker Punch was in the best hands moving forward with a strong foundation for the studio's continued success. Starting January 1st, longtime creative and technical leaders Jason Connell and Adrian Bentley will step into new roles as studio heads, continue to guide the team's focus on ambitious, character-driven experiences that define PlayStation Studios. Jason, who served as co-creative director on the Ghost of franchise, has helped define the studio's visual identity and storytelling style, bringing some cinematic depth and emotional resonance to PlayStation players around the world. Adrian, as technical director, has led the studio's engineering and production efforts, driving innovation across development tools and game systems that make Sucker Punch's world so immersive. Nate Fox will continue as co-creative director to complete the overall creative leadership team. That's generally who you'll see in a lot of interviews and stuff on YouTube. Nate Fox tends to make the rounds and discuss a lot about the new game that's coming up, and is even the one who mentioned that like 10% of Sucker Punch right now would be excited if they were going to make a new Sly Cooper game. So that kind of tells you the position right now of the studio and how many OGs are even left, and now you see one in particular with Brian Fleming leaving. And it's hard to say what exactly happened here. It could be as simple as, wow, I've been here for almost 30 years. There is a payout here for me on the way out, and I can kind of go do what I want then in life before the next big project starts up, because it's about to, with Ghost of Yote seems very profitable for Sony at this time. I feel like it will eventually get to a point where it is even ahead of Tsushima in terms of sales. And because if you look at it, it is definitely a sequel of Ghost of Tsushima, but because of this, they were able to use a lot of assets and animations from Tsushima, and that's the way they're able to keep the budget down. So it being so profitable, what's next for Sucker Punch? Well, it's not really Brian Fleming's job at this point. He would leave before the next big project really gets off the ground. They still have Legends, the multiplayer, that they have to do for Ghost of Yote, and then I'm sure they'll be thinking about what's next. I'd like to see them do something brand new at this point, move away from the Ghost series or even past projects. Infamous would be fun to see them go back to, but it's not necessarily something I'm expecting. So maybe it's just, hey, let's do a brand new intellectual property here going into the PlayStation 6 generation. But interesting stuff here for Sucker Punch, some new leads here moving in, and we'll see what they have planned after Legends with that multiplayer coming out in 2026. And in our last bit of news, there is a new demo that did release for Final Fantasy VII Integrade. It came out on the Xbox Series and on the Switch too. This we can see over on Komatsu, where they have all the codes actually here. So if you just redeem code on the eShop, you can punch any of these in and it'll just automatically start downloading it. The thing is though, if you just go to Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrade's page on the eShop, it just says download demo. So you can go either way with it, but for the Xbox Series, it's up on the store as well. Microsoft Store through your browser or on the Xbox. And I had a chance to play some of this. It will be carrying your save data over to the full game, so this is kind of just a way for you to get started early, and players with demo save data on their console can claim the bonus items, Revival Earrings, and Survivor Set in the full game. That will be releasing January 22nd. And I did get a chance to check it out here on the Switch too, and for the most part, the image quality is clean. I mean, it does look very, very good, even blown up to a big screen, as you'd expect with the Switch 2, aiming for 4K. And this, while it is the Integrate version, the base game was on the PlayStation 4. So I was kind of expecting it to look really good here. A little disappointing, it did have to get cut down still to 30 FPS. But now I think with this really turning out to be a good version of the game on the Switch 2, what will Rebirth look like? That is the big challenge, and it seems like it's coming over. They've already talked about that, and then the third one will as well. That open world beat up the PlayStation 5 to no end. I mean, it looked quite blurry in performance mode on the PS5. So I figure here we'll probably see a similar outing in terms of frame rate, and then it's like, what can they do with the image quality with that large, expansive kind of open zone type setup? So hey, at least for now, Integrate, $40 on the Switch 2. If you have not played Final Fantasy VII, you've been kind of waiting for this release, or even on the Xbox, it's a fun game, and the trilogy, while we still need to see it get wrapped up, I think so far has been a really fun ride, and hopefully we'll see that third game maybe in 2026, at least getting it announced, because they're kind of running out of time in this generation if they want to fit everything here together. And then of course, re-release it on the PlayStation 6. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'd normally be going to the poll of the day, but I did not have one because we're starting up Game of the Year Madness today. I put out the entire bracket over on the community board for the channel here, and I mean, you can see some of it will just scroll up and down all the matchups right now. People were very curious as to how this came about, specifically the games, the entries here, why they are placed where they are, and it really comes down to the seeding, which is pulled from OpenCritic. So the way this works is it's kind of like, I mean, if you look at sports, there's a regular season to determine the playoffs. Here, their regular season are how you did throughout the year with all of your reviews. And I went through, there's 32 games here, and these are the top 32 games rated over on OpenCritic. You'll notice there are some games that were left out and people were noticing, wait, there's no Ninja Gaiden 4 on here. There's no Metroid Prime 4. There's no Kirby Air Riders. To be frank, they just didn't make the cut. I mean, seriously, 32 games. There were a lot of really highly rated games this year, and they just weren't able to overcome that. Maybe if there were like 40 something entries, they would have. But I'm telling you guys, Metroid Prime 4 was like number 164 or something that I would have had to go through to get to it. So it was way down the list on there, and so I had to use some judgment when it comes to remasters or re-releases and stuff. How much of a remake was it? That kind of thing, right? So that's why you see some remakes here, but not every single remaster or re-release. But I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Voting starts today with that initial matchup, which you can see is Hades 2 and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3+4, that remake. So this is gonna be a lot of fun. We'll see how everything turns out over the coming weeks. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from CK Sketch, who says, can't wait for Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic to release on December 14th, 2029. Just a few weeks before 2030. Hey, you know what? They said they were gonna get it out. Casey hasn't said, hey, before 2030. That is indeed before 2030. And you know what? I'm gonna call it right now. December 7th, 2029 is when Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic will release. They're going to take advantage of that late release window, that first week of December. And yes, that is a Friday. So I'm calling it now. Years and years in advance. We'll see how close I end up getting. It would be actually pretty funny if they said, oh, no, it's coming out in 2027 or something. That would blow my mind. But I think we're going to get I think we're going to be up against it for 2030. And yeah, it might legitimately be like 3 weeks before we tick over to the new decade. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to check out a 4K emulation system that I made fairly cheap. I did that in a video over the weekend, and I'll leave it right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.